Hey Tim, look at this.
Needs work.
Hey Tim, how about this?
Still needs work.
Darn it. How about this?
Nice, high five.
All right, breath and hey everybody, how's it going?
My name's Tim.
And my name's Michael.
And you're watching TM.
That is the Tim and Michael Information Show. Yes, we're trying to get that synced up. Sorry if I'm talking over you, but today we're talking about WandaVision, WandaVision. That's fun song. We're not going to get, tracked for singing it. It's just just a cover. That's all it is. So
my pitch is
I love this because you sent me a text saying, hey, have you been watching the show? And I said, dude, like it was the day that the last episode aired. Tim, shoot me your thoughts about WandaVision.
I absolutely loved it. I was really looking forward to the show from the minute they announced it. I love Vision. We haven't gotten to see a lot of Wanda in the films yet. We certainly haven't explored much for backstory. And my goodness, it is just amazing that this show could do such a beautiful job with both characters. I mean, the episode 8 of the series, the penultimate entry, just really, really great job doing about 40 minutes worth of heavy character lifting that 3 movies had just completely glossed over. So really, really pleased with the way this show turned out. It was something I was really looking forward to. I've got enough history with the comics to know a little bit about Vision and Wanda's Marvel Comics back history. And when they announced the show, I realized, there's some really, really great places they can take this that deal with just grief and loss. That's exactly what it was. So very beautifully realized and an absolute thrill the whole time. I mean, every single episode ended not necessarily on a cliffhanger, but just with this great narrative turn. And you're like, well, great, where are we going to go next? So,
you like my work daughter. She's a huge fan of Wanda and Vision, specifically from the comics.
Okay.
That's like her biggest parody. Before I think Elizabeth Olsen or Paul Bettany ever showed up as those characters in the saga, that was her favorite, pairing. And much like you, because I think you and I have done an episode about Marvel and DC. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to grow up with those comics. I grew up with DC comics, so I don't have a lot of that background in my head. However, I can say that as a first-time viewer, I still get to be surprised by a lot of things, not knowing what's coming, and to the point that I became such a fan of the MCU that I just started collecting all of this, these DVD things.
Swag, wow.
Dude, now it's obviously phase 1 is in the shield box here. This is phase 2. Actually, this is just the Power Stone. This is phase 2 in these bunches right here. But then phase 3 is split into parts 1 and parts 2. I know what most people might be thinking, dude, if you have Disney Plus, you don't need these. But you still have 2 Spider-Man films in here that aren't on the Plus. And there's so many collectibles in here. I could do a whole episode on those on its own. But I wanted to say, again, from not knowing who these characters were, I've always loved Elizabeth Olsen in anything I watched her in. And Paul Bettany, who I absolutely fell in love with when I first saw him in A Beautiful Mind. The prodigal roommate enters, and it's like, who is this guy? I really like him, And when I heard him as the voice of Jarvis, I said, I know exactly who that is. But then pre-Ultron, pre-Age of Ultron, that first phase 1.5, I kept hearing his voice and thinking, what a shame that they have such a powerhouse actor and I never get to see his face. I mean, he's really acting. That scene with him and James Spader in Age of Ultron, think about it. It's just them
They have several.
using their voices, but how, I get chills every single time I watch it because I'm just like, So when we finally got to the chamber and Thor came down and broke it open, by the way, if anyone's watching this and you haven't seen them all, please watch them. Please do. When the chamber breaks open, and we saw him come out, I was screaming in the audience because I was like, yes, everybody else is screaming because it's Vision. Me, I'm screaming because it's Paul Bettany, and we actually got to use him. And then how fantastic that even though just when I was getting a hint, a guy who doesn't have any comic background, just when I was getting a hint of how big Wanda and Vision were as a couple and how big their saga is in the comics, when I was barely introduced to it, they took them away from me. And then we got a show. And we were talking a little bit about, a lot of my friends and I just over quarantine have chatted about how much time do you get inside a movie to be on screen. Hannibal Lecter, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, won the Oscar with a very little amount of screen time. A very, very little. I don't know if it's the record. I don't know if I could say that off the top of my head, but it's very, very little time. But it was obviously enough of a performance to get him the Academy Awards still. So we didn't really get a lot of time with Wanda and Vision, especially a lot of time together. But I just rewatched the entire saga with my dad to catch him up, to show him WandaVision specifically.
Okay.
And going back and watching all of these details that they actually put in there, like, you know, Wanda does talk about there we go.
Please stand by. All right, next episode.
By the way, I know some people have a lot of anxiety whenever they see Please Stand By, which turns us back to the time of, you know, when you had to wait a week to watch a show. There's still a lot of shows that are like that. I think it's so interesting that we're used to the binging, but like, what a treat to actually wait again, you know? So I know when a lot of people said when Disney Plus came out, oh, we still have to wait, and it's not like the Netflix. Well, let them do it that way.
Right.
Let them do it that way, because look at how much longer we actually get to enjoy things. I think it's fantastic.
Well, and what a great approach for this particular series too, because it's one big mystery, and it doesn't really tip its hand till the end, of course. And even if you have that comics background and you kind of know where things are going, you still don't know the why behind the reveal. So you get to spend every single episode trying to tease out those details, and then the weeks in between each episode, ruminating and rewatching bits and saying, well, does this mean this? Does this mean that? And the cultural conversation that started to swell, especially over probably the last 5 episodes, once the series really got going, was just wonderful to be a part of.
I know, it's weird because it's hard to, I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you, because I have to have another one with my sister, because she posted on her story, who's willing to talk to me about WandaVision, I'm like, me, you know, but only after it was done. Right. Because there's another friend of mine who said, I haven't seen them all because, and this is so interesting. She said, I haven't seen them all because I don't want to go through the waiting. You know, I want to be able to binge it all at once. But then in my mind, I was thinking, well, if you would have just watched it, you would have caught up with us. So I don't know. And then she says, and then she tells me, I've been really good about avoiding spoilers. The only thing I know is it was Agatha all along. And I like that song. And I was like, I didn't say it to her, but I was like, oh, like, I don't know any spoilers, but the only thing I know I mean, granted, they call her Agnes.
Right.
But I'm hoping it's enough of a mystery redirect, but I'm just like, come on, man. Like, it's hard these days. And so I'm glad that this is one of the first shows that I actually watched when it came out. As it came out, like I saw it on that Friday morning, you know, and just was able to actually enjoy it without it getting spoiled, because there's so much good in there. And I keep moving this thing. This is what happens when we're doing through Zoom. There we go. Exactly.
And I mean, you really did have to tread lightly with the spoilers. The last few episodes I watched at midnight because I just could not wait for it. But I was pretty busy when episodes 3, 4, and 5 came out. So I was getting my work done and watching those in the evening over dinner. And then on episode 5, with the return of fake Pietro, multiverse Pietro, as we thought at the time, I had 2 people, most disappointing twists in my whole life. But I had 2 separate people who, my relationship with these people, by the way, is not like one that like we have. They're not like these super nerds that we talk about comic book stuff all the time or movie stuff all the time. These people just out of the blue, they're like, did you see WandaVision this week? And I'm like, No, not yet, but apparently I really have to now. And yeah, I get to the end and just, oh my goodness, what what's happening next? So yeah, that gives you an idea of just how lightly you had to tread with the spoilers and how involved everyone was getting with this show.
I think yeah, and talk about ensemble cast.
Oh my god.
Rewatching the whole MCU phase one, two, three. Um, we got Doctor Darcy, now, and
Hmm.
I was like, oh god, because I was so happy with Thor: The Dark World when I got to see my cast return in full.
Right.
And with Ragnarok, I was like, "Oh God, I don't see Selvig. I
Hmm.
don't see Kat Dennings. I don't see Natalie Portman. It's granted we know that Natalie's going to return. We saw a glimpse of her in Endgame, and we know that there's going to be more future for Jane.
Right.
But also, I was like, well, where's Darcy? I even got to see Selvig a couple times. Because not only is he's in both the first two Avengers, in addition to the Thors.
He
Um,
is. That's right. He has a
you
lot
know,
than I remembered. Absolutely.
Yeah, and our FBI agent, I was not expecting to see that guy again, but the second I saw him, I was like, "Oh, I'm so happy." I am so happy. And also, I know I had just watched everything, but my brain and its inability to retain every single bit of information, unlike an android, I'm getting there, or maybe I'm not,
Yeah,
is I was watching, after what episode did we see the blip? What episode was that?
that was the fourth one. Uh, that was that was the one where they broke out of the sitcom world, out of Westview, and we kind of got a behind the scenes look at what was happening. But yeah, that was the blip episode. Yeah.
And how cool that it goes back to anamorphic widescreen when
Yeah.
it's the real world. The only other films I know Ant-Man is in standard, wide, because they were talking about getting that full perspective. Ant-Man and Wasp goes back to anamorphic just
Interesting.
because they're going for that big scope of the MCU. But how cool that when we were there, I said, now we're in the real world. I get goosebumps thinking about it. But when she goes, Maria's going back to Sword, and she sees a picture of her mom. They aged her up, and I don't know why I didn't connect that was the same actress from
Huh.
Captain Marvel. I don't know how I missed that, or maybe I was at 4 episodes in. I was just so like, please tell me what's happening, and I was so flustered. But then it wasn't. But this is good storytelling because they're not relying on you remembering names. They did a thing in there where they were like, I don't know, Captain Marvel went up against her pretty well, and then you see her get all awkward about it,
Hmm.
and that's when the light bulb burst in my head and I realized who that was that I was watching, which is strange because when I rewatched the MCU with my dad and I saw Captain Marvel, I kept looking at that little girl and I was like, I wonder where she is now. How old would she be? Not knowing that that's who I was going to watch in
Right.
WandaVision. And so the Russo brothers said, a scene should do two things, you know, like when they were talking about Wong explaining the Infinity Stones, he is explaining it for the audience, but he's also explaining it for Tony, you know, and he says for Tony, who's actually never heard about them before, because he needs to know, but then for the audience, just in case this is their first time watching anything Marvel. But then one of the brothers goes, but if this is your first time watching anything Marvel, I think you really need to go back and
Oh,
reassess what you've been watching. So I was really happy that the show exists in several ways, doing several things at once, showing me somebody who might have forgotten or didn't know, by the way, that's who this is, and also in the storyline, just a developmental part of that, like, because we don't even get to delve as deep into it until the tag at the very end of
mhm.
the whole series. I'm like, "Eh." Somebody wants to talk to you up there.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was an interesting setup. I'm like, okay, this woman's got to be somebody. Oh, she's a scroll. All right, we're moving on to Secret Wars now. Cool.
Secret what?
Oh, Secret Wars is the announced series that I think they dropped it back in December. I mean, they've listed a whole bunch of series at some sort of press conference that, oh, we got these 6 Star Wars series and these 6 Marvels series coming out. So,
Oh,
Secret
see,
Wars is one of
yeah.
those. Yeah, that's gonna.
I try not to listen too much to just announcements because um, I don't know. Whenever I do, too much information finds me. But then when I start seeing ads pop up, that's enough for me to go, oh, there's something else coming up. Like in a week or so, we get Falcon and Winter Soldier. You know.
And truthfully,
These-
they'll announce stuff that's not coming out for years and years and years, especially in Marvel. I think we knew we were heading towards Infinity War back when that first Avengers came out in 2012. That was 6 years prior. And granted, they were still plotting out the roadmap to get us there, but it very quickly became clear we're doing some sort of Infinity Stones Gauntlet mega event, and that's exactly where we ended up.
Yeah, so much so that didn't they make an Infinity Gauntlet in Odin's chamber, his little treasure chamber,
Right,
that they weren't
did.
sure what they were going to use, and then they had to cleverly retcon it with Hela going fake,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
tossing it over. I'm I'm interested to see where we're gonna go though, because now that they've done a couple things right. We've given Scarlet Witch her actual fully realized title of the Scarlet Witch,
Mhm.
and we've also brought back Vision in a way, haven't we?
Which I did not fully expect. None of the projects they've announced really indicated that Vision would be in them. We know Scarlet Witch is going to be in Doctor Strange 2, so we have that. But the MCU's been really good about not or letting their dead stay dead, or finding really meaningful ways to bring them back. So we have Gamora and Loki back in Endgame, who we lost in Infinity War, but it's not the versions we've known for the last 6 years. It's the 2012, 2014 versions. Vision being an android, conceivably easier to resurrect, but at the same time, knowing that there was a good chance this was going to be sort of a created or recreated version of Vision using Wanda's alternate or reality altering powers. I suspected he would not stay with us past the series, which certainly was true of the Hex Vision that we saw for much of the show. But I had no idea they were going to bring back the Vision we've been with since 2015, and certainly had no idea they would do it in such an interesting, meaningful way. I mean, there were people saying, "Oh, is Hex Vision and the White Vision going to merge and kind of create the True Vision again?" And with Wanda's powers, there's a million interesting ways you could do that or something like that. But what a great way to take White Vision, the original Vision that we know, on this sort of voyage of self-discovery and let him tease out his own identity and get back to the Vision we know. That's certainly one of the high points of the series for me, and possibly one of the high points of the entire MCU.
Yeah, because I gotta say, man, there was something really brilliant. I remember loving all the movies, watching them all again. And even when I saw Age of Ultron, I think at the time I was like, I don't know if I loved it as much as the first Avengers film, but I
Mhm.
think it's just because the tone was different, and it's almost like Temple of Doom, where the middle chapter starts to get dark, doesn't it? The first one is super, super fun. Then it gets a little dark. Then it gets a little fun again, except because it's a 10-year saga now. 10 years plus, we've had so many ups and downs and so many darks and so many lights and so many highs and so many lows, where our emotions are just but I really love Age of Ultron. I've watched it about 5 times in the last couple months,
Oh
and I
wow!
keep getting something else out of it each time I do. The fact that Wanda said something about seeing the bomb with Stark come down. I forgot that detail about her talking about it, and then I see it in the show. The fact that um, and it killed me in Infinity War because it's one of those, you're rising action, and then it just drops with the reversal, like Marshall taught us about those reversals where it just flips. I mean, Banner is talking about, well, maybe there's still enough of Vision left if we remove the stone. You
Right.
know, it's me, it's Tony, Ultron, Jarvis. There's so much of, maybe the best parts of him can still be left if we remove this. Takes him to Shuri, which I love. She's like, why didn't you just, realign the synapses to fire and da da da? He says, because we didn't think of it. And I was like, to his defense, he didn't actually design the body that was being built in there. Ultron did. He took the stone, dropped it in there, and it was under his sort of idea to put it in the cradle. So sort of accidental, but Banner's right. He didn't think of it. A robot that he designed thought of it, and very confusing. But still, there's something so beautiful about when Vision first shows up. You know, all of this deep thinking. Because at first he kind of fights, but then immediately gets tossed, and then has a window view, and then he immediately apologizes and looks, oh, thank you, and then he's always debating. He's always debating with himself. And even in Civil War, he says, I have a hypothesis. Oh, this ought to be great.
Yes.
So when you have two Visions that could clearly fight, he stops, and we actually have this moment of, like, you're familiar with, and this is, of course, like, oh, thank you. Thank you, because beyond being powerful, your minds are the most powerful thing. And because I was teased so much with almost being able to still have Vision without the stone, and I knew it was possible. Shuri told us it was possible. So they somehow resurrect, because think about it, it's been 5 years, right? Since the blip
It has. Yeah.
that he's been confiscated, and then Wanda comes back, and then where is he? I just want to bury him. So, and they've taken him apart and put him back together how many times?
Right.
But wow, how very accidental of him to become the weapon that they wanted. But I'm so glad that he was able to be reasoned by with himself. I don't know where he flew to, but I'm really curious.
I'm sure we'll find out. That's obviously a tease for something. But I mean, yeah, in that moment where Hex Vision kind of grabs him in that headlock and goes, "Oh, I'm not the true Vision," and then everything calms down, and White Vision goes, "Oh, I require elaboration." And in that moment, you're like, "Oh, there he is. There's that character we know and love." That, because you see so many characters rage fight and just go at it and get crazy and watch and work out of emotion. And Vision has emotions, but he also has this amazing sense of clarity that just drives everything he does and says. And upon this first consideration that, oh, maybe what I'm fighting is not truly my objective, and there you have it. And the rest just.
And I think, because I've heard a lot of people sing Elizabeth Olsen's praises, which she absolutely deserves, because God, not only does she play the housewife in so many different genres of television, style, but she also plays, Wanda and all of her turmoil. And she's playing such a literally dimensional character with all of these aches and woes. But Paul Bettany, when White Vision got activated, I was almost concerned. I said, is that a different actor? His demeanor was just so, it made me sad, and it made me sick, because because it was the shell of the person that I cared for, but it's not the person that I care, but he's just that good, that when he was playing, and you could say, oh, it's in the eyes. No, it was everything in his demeanor was just not the Vision we knew, until all of a sudden he does come back and you hear his voice slightly different. And let's also talk about the show styles, because I grew up with a little black and white television in my room. So I did watch a lot of I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show, and Annie Griffith Show, and then moved on and started watching, like Three's Company, and I remember watching Growing Pains growing up. Every single intro that show did, just saying to me, and I said, I know exactly what this is. The Bewitched intro, the whole tropes, and I wasn't ready for it to change so often. But as a set designer, I did recognize. I'm like, episode 2. I'm like, is this a different house
Yeah.
interior? You know?
What commitment to they're basically creating a new set every single episode for the same house. And
Yeah, dude.
I asked the same question because I assumed that was sort of set within the Dick Van Dyke era still. It still kind of looked like it, and it progressed just a little further up to Bewitched. But when they went downstairs, I realized, no, this is not the same house we saw. They built a completely new set for a 30-minute episode. We're 2 episodes in. How often are they going to do this? A lot, it turns out.
And I gotta say, I definitely teared up a lot during that show. I think it's safe to say a lot of us were emotionally taxed during Endgame because we felt like it was this, it's 10 years plus of weights that we've been carrying. And even watching it again recently, it already hit me hard the first time, but it hit me even harder when she just drops down, in front of Thanos in Endgame, and she says, "You took everything from me. I don't even know who you are." And she almost pulled him apart. The only reason and it's, you have to remember, because you're like, how the hell did you escape her? Because as soon as she had him, I'm like, you're dead. You're dead. But then it rained fire. I was like, oh, that's how you got out of it, you dummy. You'd be like, but sire, our troops just do it. Like, well, you can't blame the guy for being tactical. He clearly knows how to fight his battle. And but super, super happy. And it's funny because, I don't know much of anything. I didn't know that she was going to be in the next Doctor Strange, but you've actually given me a little bit of clarity, because when I saw her at the end at the cabin, but then she's doing the projection looking at the book, I was like, that looks very Sorcerer Supreme, So says something.
Setting it up, yeah. I guess was the one tease we get for Doctor Strange, as they had also said, oh, this show is going to lead directly into Multiverse of Madness, the next Doctor Strange. And I was wondering if somehow the events of the film were going to have a direct impact on that. Is Wanda's magic going to crack things open and suddenly open all these gateways or access to the multiverse? And it turned out to be much quieter than that. It's really just setting her up for the events of those movies. And maybe that's for the best, because this is already a very full show with a lot of misdirection in it. So really, by the time when you get to those last 2 episodes, all the facades come away, and it's really just about telling that emotional core story of grief. And do we really need to be the next thing?
And you know what? You just reminded me that when Vision is talking to Ultron, he says, "A thing is not beautiful because it lasts." And I was like, I know Kevin Feige and the producers have all been doing one heck of a job tying all of these stories together, but there's certain things like that I just think, did you know? Did you know? Like, is that just fantastic writing, or lucky, or building on what we've already set up, or just accidents? Who knows? But it really makes for such a fantastic story, to hear a line like that, and then now it has even more weight, than what we ever thought was coming. So
I think that's truly the incredible thing about this show. I can't recall anything I've ever seen where it does a great job connecting the universe forwards as well as backwards. And obviously you look back at things or you retcon things, but I saw a headline the other day, I shared it on Facebook, that a lot of people are going back and rewatching Age of Ultron and quote the headline, falling in love with it because of WandaVision, and shared all these tweets where people were just going through and pulling out the Wanda moments like you were talking about, and and just falling in love with her moment in that character that doesn't get a chance to shine in that film. But when you come back to it with the knowledge of WandaVision and her story, it just becomes all the more beautiful, and you're able to connect the dots in ways you weren't able to before. And the master strokes in this universe are becoming really incredible.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, master strokes, because I think that's the thing. Perhaps, the first Avengers was the realized painting, and perhaps Age of Ultron was master strokes leading to so many other things. Because I started looking at that and I said, there's Civil War was inevitable. I started from the first Avengers and the second Avengers, and I started seeing how at odds, Tony and Cap could be. I was just thinking, oh, like when I saw the title Civil War the first time around, I thought, oh, why would people be fighting? But then I went back and looked at it. I said, these master strokes were being made way long time ago, and so it's no wonder we're going back and really falling in love with these moments and beginnings we didn't realize were as crucial as they were. Think about it. That's other than the tag that you get at one of the other films. That's the only time you really get to see Pietro.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how the events of these films, I guess, kind of these midway films, at least as we're standing now, so the Age of Ultron, Winter Soldier era, those events are just sending shockwaves throughout the rest of the MCU, and you feel it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily directly set up what we're going to see in this next movie. It's a new adventure, but Age of Ultron impacts Civil War, and then that impacts Infinity War. I remember that opening scene where Bruce and Tony are reunited, and Tony's like, caught up in a spell. The Avengers are kaput, and you realize, oh yeah,
broke up.
Pick up the phone.
Like a band, like the Beatles.
Like the Beatles, yeah. I mean, this normally easy task of let's call up some more heroes, let's call up Steve. It's suddenly very difficult, and you don't really think about this, but at the end of Civil War, it's basically the Tony Stark A-team. He's left with his best friend Rhodey and his robot Vision. Black Widow had walked off. Everyone else on Team Cap was off and hiding. So no wonder he tries so hard to recruit Peter Parker, because who else does he have?
Yeah. And you know what? I know we're it's hard to not stay on topic because there's so many webs in here. But talking about rewatching Endgame, they paired off, War Machine with Nebula to retrieve the stone, and she says, "I wasn't always like this," and he says, "Neither was I." And I was like, "Oh, that's deep. That's really deep, dude." So there's a lot of great work in there, and kind of as I feel ourselves wrapping things up, I wanted to mention that a friend told me, I guess Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier was meant to air first, but because it was being filmed overseas in different places, an espionage spy show, that they had to put that on hold. But because WandaVision was contained in the back lot of what was it, Warner Brothers, that was easier. Was it Warner Brothers? I think it was Warner Brothers.
I'm not sure. I don't think it was all here in LA. They did some. I read they shot in Georgia and some other places, but it's certainly all domestic. So you don't.
Right. So it was much easier to film a lot of it back there and get it done being COVID safe. Do you think it's poetic justice or manifest destiny that we got this show first before? Do you think that when that show comes, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but do you think it's going to be helped or hindered by the fact that WandaVision came out first?
I mean, narratively speaking, I'm not sure it matters. I'm not sure if that's the angle you're getting at. I know, in my personal experience, I was most excited for WandaVision out of the 3 shows that we're getting. So for me, it's actually WandaVision, Loki, and Winter Soldier Falcon is kind of the one I'm least interested in. I'm still certainly going to watch it. I don't know how the rest of the country is feeling, but I will say this: Disney Plus has gotten huge accolades for its original content already with Mandalorian, and that's just gone through the roof with WandaVision. And how can that level of equity that you've built with your audience not be great for your next show? Would that still happen if we flipped the two?
Right. I feel like I've said everything that I could say for the moment about this show before we decide to do WandaVision Part 2. But is there anything else you wanted to tack onto there, or are you
Yeah,
feeling
let's
good?
do this because we've been kind of all over the map. Let's tie back into WandaVision. Just real succinctly, give me like your top 2 or 3 high points from the entire series, and I'll give mine, and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh, I loved the magic show, because it really reminded me of an I Love Lucy hijinks kind of show, where they're just trying to figure out like, and poor Vision who's got gum literally in his system, and as doing seeing Paul as Paul too, like do the full on like pose, in a magician's outfit. I'm like, this looks great, you know. That's got to be one of my high points. Give me one of your high points while I'm thinking of another one.
Oh, sure. Easily the best part of the show for me was what I'm billing as the resolution of Vision's arc, which I see is contained in the finale as the Ship of Theseus scene. And then really that final, just really beautiful, bittersweet, heartbreaking moment in the house when he turns on the light and they're sharing those last minutes together. As you can see, the hex just slowly creeping towards him through the window, and that scene left me emotionally wrecked for pretty much all of Friday. But it's so beautifully handled. Concludes his show nicely, or concludes his arc nicely within the show, while still giving that really beautiful promise that we might just get to see him again and see them reunited.
Seeing Darcy come in and set up her little station and starting to give me clarity, I think, is also a very important moment, because we've been zooming out on the Please Stand By for the first few episodes, and we're like, who is watching this, until we finally realize, because I think a show can leave me hanging for only so long before I start to get a little frustrated with what is going on. So I think they gave it to us at the right time. And seeing her view everything, like, can I get an old TV? Can I get a coffee? That's probably another high point for me, because not only am I enjoying the vignettes, but I'm also enjoying getting an actual answer of what is happening.
I've got 2 more, and I'll do one, then I'll let you do one, then I'll give my last one. We'll kind of stagger it here. Another episode I really enjoyed was the Halloween episode, where we got first of all, that's really the most amount of time we've gotten to spend with Pietro, because he kind of vanished after that. And I'm actually really sorry that he didn't turn out to be the Fox X-Men Universe Pietro, because he was a really, really great fit. He was really fun. So I enjoyed seeing him, but I also enjoyed seeing Vision go off on his own and take some autonomy. And it wasn't a particularly creepy episode. It's the fun trick-or-treating version of Halloween. But there's something just so eerie of walking through the streets of Westview, and people are, barely moving like old falling apart Chuck E. Cheese robots. Just
Yeah.
You're starting to see the world fall apart at the seams. So Halloween was just the perfect backdrop for that, and it was a good kind of spooky progression throughout the entire episode.
I've got 2 more now that I think about it. So one,
Okay.
love the like I said, the doing 2 things. I love the little comments that were made in there, like when she was like, what happened to your accent? What happened to yours?
Yeah.
That's one of them. The whole, like, Scarlet Witch, she could take on Thanos, almost defeat him. I don't know. Captain Marvel gave it, and then you see Maria get all twitchy. That was another moment. I was like, oh. And then the she was never given a code name. they say that in the beginning when they're talking to the sword people, and they're saying like she was never given. We know her as Scarlet Witch from the comics, but they said aloud, for the record, she was never get. I said thank you. It's covering their bases, breaking the fourth wall just enough, maybe not really breaking the fourth wall, but I love that. And quickly tacking on my second one, the intros,
Sure.
the recreation of the decade intros from just looking how good they look 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you know. The even the Office intro was like,
Oh yeah.
and the fact that they doon 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 doon, that chime musically keeps fitting in to like every version of it, even the Munsters Agatha bum 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 ba-dum, bum. I'm like, that's really clever music writing. So those are my highlights. You have another one?
You actually led right into mine. It was Agatha all along at the time of that one episode. Yeah, you really didn't see it coming. You kind of knew something was going to happen. Ooh, we're in the dark, creepy basement. This is where it all falls apart. And then you're just in this fantastic little Monsters theme song pop number with Catherine Hahn just having a really fun time. I mean, the Twisty Twister. So I really enjoyed it when I first saw it, and then I kind of kept coming back to it and saying, "This is really, really fun. I really like this." And then slowly discovered, oh my gosh, everyone else is falling in love with this song too, and writing metal covers and pop covers and folk covers, and it's a surprise hit of the season. That
It really is, and I feel so happy for her too. I first saw her in a film. Where were they? Or were they camping? Or was it Our Idiot Brother? Or I have to look it up again because I remember seeing her and going like, "Who is this person? I like this person." She kind of looked like she could have been like Anna Gassneyer's sister or something. Not that they performed the same at all. There was just something about like, "Oh, are you guys related?" But no, you're not. Um, and I feel like I remember when Sebastian Stan was talking about how they pulled him aside and they said, "By the way, so you accepting this role as Bucky, there might be some more work for you to do." That's what they told him. There might be some. And he's like, "Oh, okay, we'll see where that leads." And not only did it lead to several more films, now he's going to get his own show. And I've got a bunch of friends that are super like Winter Soldier like crazies that are. So I messaged them immediately. Said, "Are you ready?" They're like, "I am so ready." They're actually they were more excited for that than not saying that they didn't love WandaVision. They did,
right.
but they were excited to see that first, and then they were a little angsty that they had to wait. But how cool to see that it turned into that. And I feel like, I don't know if somebody told him this or if I heard it from another fandom, but I feel like there was a conversation that existed somewhere in the ether, not the stone, but the ether.
Right.
And they said, "You have no idea what you're in store for. You have no idea what's coming your way." And I don't know if anyone had a talk with Catherine about it, but like, um, I had no idea. But the second I heard Agatha all along, I heard that conversation of, you have no idea that you are now a very big part of something, even if this is the one thing for a while. You'll be here when I need you, and I know exactly where you're gonna be.
Right.
Um, the memes love her.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have you seen
It-
that in the past week?
or the "and I killed Sparky too" meme turned into and I have a lot of Disney friends, so she's like, "I killed Splash Mountain too."
Oh no! Or this one took me a while to really get, but you've seen the a picture of um Barry from The Flash over the grave giving the peace sign, and
Okay, yeah.
Because that was just taken on set. But then I remember somebody superimposed her doing that over the dog's grave.
I think I saw
But-
that.
But
Yeah.
then right below that, they put her face on the grave and they had John Wick. Because John Wick, if you haven't seen John Wick, again, you have to see it to get it. The whole reason John Wick happens is because they killed his dog.
Oh, I remember that.
That is the whole reason that mess happens, because they killed his dog. You know, so she killed the dog, John Wick killed you because you killed the dog. So, wow, fantastic show. 10 out of 10. Would watch again.
I definitely will. It's a show that is going to reward multiple viewings for sure. So, all right.
Thanks for chatting with me about it, dude. It's always great to get together with you.
Likewise. This was time well spent. Covered a lot of good ground.
Yes. Thanks for watching. If you have, listened to all of our banter, and please feel free to leave any comments below. I know that's a new thing that we haven't said before, but we like to keep the conversation going, and who knows, maybe your comment below might spark another topic for us or revisit this one. So thanks, everybody. Have a good
All right.
day.
Thanks, guys.